Thank you, and hello everybody. So last effort for today. And today I'm gonna talk about the feedback that we want to give you on the national practitioner groups. I think that you have heard this word many times in these 2 days about NPG, but yeah, the meaning of NPG is national practitioner groups. And so the idea today is to talk about how we implemented all the practices that you have seen in these days, so like the hut experiments and so on. So we will talk about a bit of about the process of gathering together stakeholders and try to involve them in this process of change. So this is the very start of the project is saying every project starts with a challenge. So Anne already told you about it. We wanted to improve the quality of rearing practices and the products in general. Then we wanted to overcome the problem of having all this diversity in Europe among practices. So just to keep things together, understand if we could find a common way. And then we wanted to, of course, improve animal welfare through different practices, so avoiding like limit mortality, improve outdoor access, limit castration, and so on. And so what we wanted to do in this project from the very beginning was to test and evaluate animal welfare while improving practices. So we wanted to test different tools on farm, but also with stakeholders to understand everyone's well-being, so not only the animal well-being, but also farmers, sometimes researchers, and see what could happen. So how do we address the challenge that we were facing, so this huge problem of welfare? We as AIAB, we have the role of facilitating change. So our role was to actually put together all the scientific part and the experiments and then coordinate the national practitioner groups in Europe. So we created these multi-actor groups together with the facilitators of the project. And yeah, this is a slide that you have seen already. The national practitioner groups were spread all over, and we had 9 of them coordinated by the local facilitators. And so the process we wanted to use was not a top-down approach. The idea was to co-design and co-create the implementation of practices. So we wanted to be involved and ask the opinion of the end user. And we also wanted to create a situation in which we have co-creators, so not only like researchers giving the solution to stakeholders. And so the idea was to implement change in these groups, which was quite challenging for most of the facilitators that are also here today. And we started to have 9 groups, so we have 4 groups for pigs and 5 groups for poultry. I'm a facilitator myself for the pig NPG in Italy. So these are the kinds of stakeholders that we have involved during this long path. So I'm not going through all of them, but we have like farmers, vets, organization, policymaker, researchers, and so on. You can see from these pictures some of the meetings. So this was Germany, France, Romania. So we started working all together on the needs of these groups, stakeholder groups. But yeah, so we have also to, when we start working on this project, I think you have noticed yesterday when we did that game about giving opinion and talking about roles and finding solutions. So in a group, you always have these 3 kind of stakeholders. So you have the movers, very enthusiastic, pushing, trying to implement things. Then the floaters, so whatever is okay, and the blockers. So you might have found some issues during the discussion of yesterday because there was someone kind of not helping out the conversation. And that person could also be you, so you don't really know. Yeah, so just to give an overview of what co-creation means. So the idea is going against the concept of using and being used, so that it was, I mean, it's very easy to happen in this kind of projects. So understanding who you are involving, get to know these people, also like if they are maybe blockers, but they can contribute anyhow to the project. Then we had to be very flexible also because we have met different challenges, for example, COVID, like we were in the very middle of the pandemic when we started. And yeah, trust and willingness to listen and to act. So it takes time. We have a 5 years project also for this reason. And then it's very nice when you can create ownership within the group, so that actually stakeholders are really keen to somehow share their experience, their knowledge, and they feel that the project is a little bit also part of their own experience. Yeah, so these are the 4 tools that we have used. So we had a shared methodology in Europe. The idea was to be able to compare the different groups in Europe in the project. We were following a roadmap, so trying to implement change together with not the same steps because it would be impossible, but try to share our experiences. We created templates and reports, but this is just something internal, and a space on the web that was presented also some days ago. So there is the European Multi-Actor Board platform, and also Organic Knowledge is an online website where you can find some information on the project. So, what did we want to achieve with this project, the outcomes? We created these 9 communities, active for 5 years, that could develop their own solutions, so identifying needs and problems and find the proper solutions. Have a broader community in Europe to talk about all these issues that farmers, technicians, vets, and whatever, all the people are facing in Europe. And also try to give a robust scientific set of data in order to be somehow scientifically sound in what we try to test with our NPGs. So this is the broader structure of the project. Today, what we are talking about is just the participatory approach that we are using, so as AIAB, and the link with these other research, experiment and field studies that were carried out in the project. This is a bit more complicated, but the concept is the same. So we have multi-actor involvement in the very left, and then you follow this arrow, and you end up on-farm trials. And also we have some tools that we have used in the meanwhile, like the apps and so on, and the practices, the experiments. To make it even more simple, so we have, as you have seen in these days, a very nice group of researchers who have developed practices and tools to be shared. Then we created a sort of collection of all these practices, and that they were proposed by the facilitators to the NPG, so to their national group of stakeholders. And then farmers could choose which practices and tools they wanted to test. So, of course, you have like a broader broader options, wider options to be taken, but then of course the farmer has different needs and they selected what they wanted to implement. Another tool that we developed was the app. So there were these two apps for that we have talked about already, but for animal welfare in poultry and pigs. And like when we were testing this app with the farmers and with the stakeholders, so they could give suggestions of what was working, what was not working, give feedbacks. And yeah, they are available. You can download them and you find them in 7 languages. So hopefully one of them is your language. And this is what Lucia was talking about this morning. So this group of national practitioner groups also gave feedback on the multi-criteria assessment and the data collection framework. So they were giving their opinion on the dimension and the criteria that we selected, or the group of Lucia selected. And here you have just some of the different sentences that came out from different countries. So here we were talking about biodiversity and animal nutrition. So there was this issue of soybean. For someone, it's very important that we can find it on site or to replace it with other alternatives and so on. So we had all the collection also of the opinion of the stakeholders. And this was the other activity that Lucia talked about this morning. We were playing together with our stakeholder groups in Europe. So each stakeholder group has done this deck card method that was just a funny game to prioritize the concepts. So the thing is that it was very funny to see how different they were. So for sure the farmer were giving priority to the economic aspect of farming or of implementing animal welfare practices, while the consumer or the vet was more keen to animal welfare or environmental impact and so on. So it was very nice to see also how different their opinion was. And yeah, so this implementation of practices was quite positive so far. So farmers have shown interest in the experiment that you have seen this morning and yesterday. They started this process of implementation also with the app. So we created different protocols for testing the app. And yeah, first data have been collected for different practices. So I will leave the floor now to Monica for a few words about all the practices that we are implementing now.
I will just very fastly go through this overview that I called of the implemented practices. In fact, in these 2 days, you've been having a lot of insights in all the valuable work that the researchers did and that was taken up by the national practitioner groups, NPGs, and by farmers who are, let me say, they cannot be absent. I'm speaking to researchers, scientists, but also future researchers or maybe also farmers. And there are farmers in this meeting. So we should never forget that farmers are always necessary if we want to bring in our objective changes in management, in low input and organic systems, which are not at the top of the political agenda. Just one word on AIAB so that you can understand why we had this role. AIAB is the Italian Association for Organic Farming. And it has inside both farmers, technicians, practitioners, and researchers. So our conviction as an association is that none of these categories can do the work by itself. We really need to cooperate, we really need to co-create. And I think what has been witnessed in these days is exactly this. So I won't really go through, if not to to outline the countries that did some of the on-farm trials, but consider it just a list of possibilities, of the opportunities. Of course, here you will see the readiest innovation. You won't find innovo-sexing, for example, which were, very interesting experimental activities that probably still need some time to proceed. So, let's see, in the Netherlands and in Germany and France, just very fast, and Denmark, a lot of work was done with dual purpose genotypes. So we've been speaking about this with various researchers. I won't get into it now. The trials are still ongoing, even though they started in 2022, most of the trials, and some, at the end of 2021. And we're speaking mainly of layers, but also some work has been done with broilers. In Denmark also, a farm study could take place. It's still at planning stage on plant test extracts for layers. In France, beyond the dual purpose genotype, on-farm hatching of slow-growing chicks was testing. And this is something, if I speak to farmers, it's something very innovative. It's not obvious that we can introduce this. So the on-farm trials will give us some feedbacks on, the road that we can take to change. In Romania, I shouldn't be leaving anyone behind. Romania, we had Marina's, Pino's, very interesting relations. So yes, the whole work has been done on experimenting on medicinal plants. And there is an enormous synthesis of the work that she's been doing with antimicrobics, antihelminthics. And the group that is present here today, partly, but it's a wide group of researchers with also specific experience. In France, Belgium, and Italy, we tested the SOHATs. So the data collection has not yet finished, but we will have the results in the next months. So and this obviously thanks to the conviction not only of the great work of researchers and the implementing partners that really, I think you understood the big work that they did, also analyzing the ethology of the species and really leaving nothing behind, but also thanks to the farmers that are here. Well, yes, Jacopo and who else? No, today Jacopo from Tenuta di Paganico, that they tested. They are, I don't want to say it, but they are not my heroes. I think they are your heroes, because if you want to really do a work that is working, if you're convinced that low input and organic farming should go up in the agenda, I think you will have to work with those pushers that Martina very very cleverly described, that are the farmers that really are convinced that we should go in a different direction. Thank you. I leave the floor to Martina for the conclusions.
These are some pictures from the Tenuta di Paganico. So yeah, again, thanks Alessio and thanks Jacopo. It was nice to implement this practice also because they have the Cinta Senese breed, which is not like a conventional large white breed, so it was also more challenging somehow. Yeah, these are the huts from the outside, but I think we have seen a lot of this today. This is also another experiment that has been taken from farmers that is conducted by INRAE, Wageningen and ITAV. So, of course, if you have questions on this, ask Anne. Anyway, this was to improve on-farm hatching. So the idea was to help small farmers to have a better possibility for the chicks to have access to water and feed when they are ready. So they have these 2 trials on a French organic farm. They will be able to transport eggs at 18 days of incubation. So then the chicks would reach, and when they are ready, then they have all the water and feed available directly, so without having maybe 1 day of travel and stress to reach the farm. So this was done on 2 farms in France. And yeah, these were 2 examples, but yeah, just to tell you that it was not always easy. So we had this huge problem with COVID. So if you build a group of stakeholders and you start working in groups, this, of course, we couldn't really take into account this, but it was a challenge. We have quite a big turnover of the people working at PPILOW. So it's also, when people in the groups change, the facilitators, then you have to have a very strong group that keeps working together despite the fact that maybe the facilitator has changed. And yet sometimes, as we were seeing with the huts, of course, you realize that some experiments are difficult to be implemented in different contexts. So, for example, the problem of temperature or whatever could be with other experiments. And then, yes, this is the hot topic. We have this huge issue in Italy, but also in France and in other countries, in Romania. Swine fever and avian flu is really limiting this outdoor access of animals, and this was part of our animal welfare, like very basic concept was access to outdoor. So our question now, and we are trying to work on this in the very last year of the project because of this issue, which impact will have on animal welfare? Are we able to deal with this? How can we answer to this issue?